All right, hey, I'm back. My name is Chris Steller. I'm a senior at Orchard Park High School, and this is my follow up to the original video that got so much attention. I'd like to start by saying thank you for all the encouragement from everybody. It means a lot. I've had these issues on my mind forever. I've always worried about the student voice and what it means to actually go to school. It ought to be about learning, and unfortunately, uh, there's a lot of baggage that comes with it, and it's that's not always the case. So to have my voice be heard, it means a lot for everybody who has had kind words. Um, but with a wider audience comes a greater responsibility, and I'm making this video in order to correct some of the things that I said last time and to update you because a lot has changed in the last 2 days. So, the first thing I'd like to talk about is today I met with the high school principal, Mr. Wolf, and we had a great discussion. Uh, he told me that he saw the video, he liked the video, but he was actually able to answer a lot of the questions that I posed. Um, I'll go in order as it was in the last video. So to start with, the tents outside, they're donated by the PTO for use for gym class. If the weather is not nice, we can retreat under there to play long games and whatnot. Um, the teachers can use it for class if they like to take class outside, but they're not specifically meant to host classes in. They're not to replace classrooms that couldn't fit the capacity. Um, and the gyms themselves, it's not actually a big conglomerate of classrooms as I had assumed. It is going to be split half and half. Um, Half of it will be cafeteria, and the other half will be the gymnasium still for physical education purposes. Um, so the half with the cafeteria, he said it wasn't absolutely set in stone, but what we'll most likely do is have cohort B in the gym for a few days for lunch, and then cohort A gets to use the cafe in the commons, and then we'll switch back and forth every so often. We also discussed transportation issues that I brought up in the video, and he addressed them pretty thoroughly. I was surprised. I hadn't realized that the juniors did have different parking passes than seniors this year, so we'll be able to differentiate. And if they're parking in the senior lot, they'll be asked to go down to the junior lot or the athletic lot, and that shouldn't be an issue. We should be able to fit all the seniors in now that the juniors are being moved down. But on the bright side, juniors don't need to be in a club or activity or sport or anything like that in order to park in the athletic lot, unlike other years. And finally, most importantly, Mr. Wolf and we talked about hosting a protest in the Baker lot. He was super cooperative, and we got a lot done. So we plan on hosting a protest. You're invited from 6:30 a.m. to as long as you'd like to stay. If you want to go into school at 7:25, you're welcome to do that. We will be going on past school time, so you would be missing school if you stayed. And we plan on making posters and banners and whatnot. And there's a Google form in the description below. Please RSVP. You don't have to, it's not an RSVP per se, but we'd like to get a rough head count, and in there you can apply to speak. We'll set time frames and a schedule for speakers. You can voice your opinion. Just let us know what you want to talk about and leave some sort of contact information so we can talk to you about it. But I think it would be great to give everyone a pedestal to stand on at this protest and hear what everyone has to say. And I'm really happy that Mr. Wolf is allowing us to do this. And I also talked to the resource officer today, Miss Mackey. She was super helpful. I asked if we needed a permit for either of these protests. She said it was okay. We have permission from Mr. Wolf to protest on May 17th in the Baker lot and on May 18th in the village, as long as we don't block pedestrian traffic on the sidewalks. We should be okay. And we ought to protest at least 100 feet from the polling place at the high school on the 18th, because that's the law. You're not allowed to campaign within 100 feet, and it'll all be marked off for us accordingly. So it shouldn't be too difficult. But one thing I'd like to emphasize about this whole thing is that we're protesting for a greater student voice and connection with the actual administration, and the fact that everything that I just said wasn't very common knowledge, and that maybe you're hearing this for the first time from me in this video is proof that we aren't consulted in these matters that affect us directly. There was no directive to teachers to spread this message to the students. No usual email to parents like they do. Not a lot. It's been in the upper stratosphere of the administration, and so we want to protest to work on building communication skills with the school, letting them hear our complaints, and we want to hear what's important to them and what's going to affect us in the coming days. But I'd just like to remind that this whole shift in dynamics has been caused by just political pandering in this lawsuit, and so I looked more into how the appealing system works. I wish I had addressed it in the original video, but that's why I'm here today. And I worked pretty closely with my AP Government teacher, Mrs. Marie Feely. I honestly can say if it wasn't for her, I would never be here speaking my voice, because I never would have been involved in the school board meetings or any of the legal, real world issues here. I never would have been exposed to it. So Mrs. Feely is a great teacher, and all the best to her. Much respect. So we worked together and we looked at how the court system works. I've got a presentation here to show you. So you can see this is the basic hierarchy of the New York State court system. What happened was the decision was made in the New York State Supreme Court here by Justice Kolikovo, and it's not, the final order hasn't come out yet. It's expected to be out before Monday at least, because that's when the orders to go back 5 days a week are going into application. So once the final order is issued, we're expecting the state to appeal it almost immediately, because they don't want to set a precedent either that anyone can waltz in, sue them, and just trump public health guidelines. And I'm hoping we do the same, except what we don't want is that they stall the appeal in the appellate division, which would hold back the actual chance to appeal it, and we would be stuck on their terms. And if that happens, this protest and our cause are going to take a serious shift in tone, and it's going to rise in level significantly. So we'd like to address it at the root here, and I want to advise you to reach out to the Board of Education at this email, boe@opschools.org, and just tell them why do you think you ought to be hybrid. How does this personally affect you? Because all the evidence that we send them, all the personal accounts, it is possible that they can use that in order to appeal the decision that has been made. It's been a busy day for me, as well as talking to Mr. Wolf and Mrs. Feely about everything. I also got in contact with Mr. Ryan Cimo, who I discussed in my last video, and we had an extremely productive conversation compared to what I said in the last video. I apologize to him publicly here, and I want it to be known that the last video, I truly went off the script. It was uncalled for. I made a straw man argument, and that was no proper way to illustrate him. So we cleared up these issues over call. I said that he was trying to cut the budget for student programs, but I was misinformed. In 2019, he saw a new healthcare program that he thought was exploitative to the school district, and meanwhile, there was no funding for a student resource officer, which we ended up getting in subsequent years. So he voted no. And I also said that he was trying to sue the state for money, which was also misinformed. I took it out of context. In reality, he was suing the state, or he wasn't suing the state, but he did discuss the possibility of suing the state in order to maybe get towards what's happening right now and reopen schools, or have the option to reopen the schools. When it comes to COVID, I think him and I are just going to have to agree to disagree. He states that it's within CDC guidelines, or within reason, according to the CDC guidelines, that we can have people back. But I just see this as it's not so much about the CDC anymore. They gave us good advice on a federal level, on a nationwide level, but now that it's come down, we have to deal with it locally. We have to deal with it, play it by ear, and when there's still cases in the school, we just can't double the population and double the amount of time that students are going to be in the school. It doesn't seem right to me. It goes against everything that I had thought would make sense with COVID, and but I really appreciate him reaching out, and I've gained a new level of respect for him. I'd like to say I'm still supporting Karen Tranowski for the school board position, but I also like to wish the best of luck to Dwight Mateer and Ryan Cimo for the secondary school board position. Touching back on COVID, there are corrections and developments in order from what I said last time. When I made the last video, the FDA was still talking about lowering the age of the Pfizer vaccine down to 12, but that's changed. Here's the article from the FDA. Sorry. The FDA said that it's okay for those 12 and up, 12 to 15, to have the vaccine. So now we can have the entire school population vaccinated, but you have to think half the school or those who are 16 and above have had the opportunity to get vaccinated for months now, and still not everyone is. So we can't expect the people who are now allowed to have been vaccinated by the end of the year. And today in school, we also got to see more of what these 3 feet guidelines are going to look like, and it was a lot more sketchy than I had originally suspected it would be. I helped the teacher set up desks today, and it seems that the guideline from the administration was just 3 feet head to head is basically an arm's length. So if you can sit in a desk and reach your arm out and you aren't touching someone else's head, then that's good enough. Except that has sort of caused the desks to lay out in a form that looks almost exactly like they did pre-COVID. And I just want to remind us that we as humans didn't stop breathing particles 6 feet away. It didn't magically go from 6 feet to 3 feet. That distinction was just only political pandering, political theater, so that we could open things back up. But the science still says that 6 feet is as far as particles from your mouth can travel. And if you have COVID, then you can spread COVID 6 feet away. So COVID argument remains to be one of the biggest holes. Mr. Matthew McGarity, saying 2 months ago that there wasn't capacity for it, and us going forward hasn't really been addressed yet. So I just wanted to really shed a light on that. And in the same sense, there's been a lot of criticism. A lot of people who I don't know, have a lot of bravado in comment sections, and I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's really not that important. It's not something we ought to dwell on, but most of the comments that are critiquing what I said sound the exact same, so I could probably wrap this up pretty fast. Calling me names doesn't really do anything. Saying that people are afraid of COVID doesn't do anything. You don't really have a leg to stand on if you don't even watch the video and listen to my points. There are rare instances of constructive criticism in the comments, but for the most part, if you have a level head and you want to keep it that way, I wouldn't venture far into the comments on the YouTube or Instagram page because there's a lot of toxicity and people are tough behind the screen. I don't understand why these people would say they would waste their breath typing in the comments section when they would never say that to my face. So just unless you have something nice to say, you should stay out of the comments section is basically what I'm trying to say. And I did mention in Instagram, that's been the latest way to just get quick updates out, and it's honestly been a nice little relaxing time to make some nice posts. It's fun designing these. Here's the page. So I've just been making a lot. It's a lot faster than these videos, and it's more up to date. So give this a follow at We Are the Students on Instagram, and we have been getting a lot of DMs from people really supportive. We've had an anonymous submission of an essay that I'd like to attach in the description, and I think it's a great look into the mind of a student who's really valuing the danger of COVID. He brings up a lot of good points, and I'll just let it speak for itself. You can check it out. So finally, I'd just like to say I really appreciate the words of encouragement. This has been such a long 2 days. I never expected anything like this to happen. I'm extremely tired, so I apologize if I seem off, but I really wanted to get this out. It has been a really long day, and I'm ready for bed, but I just need to share the message first because there's a lot that I said that has changed from the last video, and that's still getting views, and I don't want people to be misinformed. So we just need to get this out as fast as possible. I just like to reiterate, I'm really happy that we have the protest locked in for next week, and hopefully we can get an appeal. I don't want this precedent to stand that anyone that can sue the school gets to own the education of Orchard Park or any other school, and I hope that we can be a model school to make sure this type of behavior doesn't stand in the American education system, because there's no place for it. So please share this video. I'd like people to hear the latest news, not old news, and seriously, thank you for the encouragement, and thank you for standing with us.